What's it gonna be? Ant-Man.
Welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Arey, and we just got a massive first trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantummania. It includes our first look at Casie Lang in her superhero outfit, Bill Murray's in the MCU, and of course, Kang the Conqueror. So we're here to explain all of this, where these people are, what does this mean as we break down all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in the first trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantummania. The opening song is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John. Now the song's lyrics in the trailer say, when you are going down to come down, when are you going to land? I should have stayed on the farm, I should have listened to my old man. The sentiment is the same with our main group, where they aren't in a place that they are familiar with, and the usual rules of reality don't apply. The Yellow Brick Road could be a nod to the main city in the quantum realm where Kang is. In the song, Elton John wants to get back to his roots, and so does our team, who started this whole mess by sending a signal to the quantum realm. It also looks like this whole movie has great parallels to The Wizard of Oz that I'm going to talk about just a little later in the video. Now, before we get into all the weird quantum stuff, let's go to ordinary San Francisco, where Scott Lang is living a dream life. Unlike most heroes, getting powers isn't hurting Scott's personal life. It's improved it. He's well known around his neighborhood, and as we learned in Ms. Marvel, he has a very popular podcast called Big Me, Little Me, a Scott Lang interview. This podcast is how Kamala Khan learned about all the behind-the-scenes details of the final battle in Endgame, and Scott is the person who's bringing these stories to the masses. So in a lot of ways, Scott is the most accessible Avenger. He's the everyman. Notice these women staring at him on the street. I can relate. Yes, you can, good boy, high five. And we saw him being honored at his old Baskin-Robbins. Now this is of course a callback to the first Ant-Man film, where this was his first job when he got out of prison, and they fired him when they found out that he had a record.
Well, you're fired, of course. I mean...
Now he's been given an award for Employee of the Century, and this guy is the boss who actually fired him in the first place. Now notice that the name tag on the photo says Jack because he worked there under a pseudonym.
Baskin-Robbins always finds out.
Ironic that now they're celebrating him and he wasn't even allowed to work there under his own name. Notice also how his suit is slightly different now with this circle on the chest. I can't help but think that the quantum suits in Endgame might have had some effect on this design. Those suits were designed by Tony Stark, but did not feature a circle in the middle of them. However, the quantum suits would have given Scott and Hank Pym access to some Stark tech, specifically the way that Stark's power systems always seemed to be routed through an object on his chest. So the redesign could be based in Stark tech, or it could just be a tribute to the fallen hero, Tony Stark. Then he high-fives a kid with an Ant-Man backpack, a big step up from when they didn't even know his name in Endgame.
Do you want to grab one with me? I'm Ant-Man.
Now, of course, he's not just an Avenger, he is a guy who literally saved the universe by coming up with the whole quantum plan to begin with. He and Hope get invited to red carpets, like this one, for the Global Service Humanitarian Award sponsored by the Anthropology Society of America, where Scott is probably getting a trophy for, you know, saving reality.
A way that we could enter the quantum realm at a certain point in time, but then exit the quantum realm at another point in time, like before Thanos.
You ask me, that rat is the real hero who should get the award.
Truth, high five. And by the way, if you guys would like to support our channel, please check out our merch store at shopzeroedition.com with the link in the description. We have ScreenCrush branded shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and every month we have a new limited release, like this sweet original trilogy t-shirt and this new shirt, Not the Bees.
Not the Bees! Ah!
So please help support our channel by checking out the shop. Everything is high quality fabric, fits great, and hey, let us know what you think we should be selling down in the comments below. Now back to the trailer. Now of course he might be famous now, but Scott is still just Scott, and not everybody actually knows who he is.
Thank you, Spider-Man!
Now this is a callback to this joke.
There's an Ant-Man and a Spider-Man?
It may also show how public opinion about Spider-Man has started to shift. Remember that Mysterio did frame him for murder, and then right after revealed his secret identity, which was of course undone in Spider-Man No Way Home. But here's the thing, I wonder if the strange memory spell from the end of that movie made people forget about Peter Parker, but also undid people thinking that he killed Mysterio. I mean, the Department of Damage Control did clear Peter's name in the movie, but there's probably still some Mysterio truthers out there. It is nice to see some people out there who support Spidey and don't believe Quentin Beck. Notice the coffee shop has lots of San Francisco themed drinks. For one, it's called the Bridge Cafe, named after the Golden Gate Bridge, and the drinks are named after San Fran locations or events. The Embarcadero, Summer of Love, The Height, Presidio, Pier 39, Golden Gate, and the Candlestick after Candlestick Park. The abstract art in the coffee shop also looks a lot like the design of the quantum realm, foreshadowing what is to come. Back to the Pym household, which we see has been moved back to its original location after Hank placed it on the beach in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And then we meet a recast Casie Lang, now played by Catherine Newton, from Detective Pikachu and Big Little Lies. Now, I don't think that Marvel ever said exactly why they recast Casie from Endgame. It might be because Emma Furman tweeted a picture of herself announcing that she'd been cast in that movie. Or maybe they just wanted a different actor because Casie is going to become the superhero stature like she is in the comics. We've mentioned this a lot on this channel, but she is sure to be among the Young Avengers, like all of these other people who have popped up in other Marvel shows and movies. In the lab, we see a map of the world with post-it notes, maybe like they're tracking world events or people who need help. It does seem like their team is more active in helping people because Casie has even created a quantum signal so people down below can call for their aid.
Because she's a super genius now.
Apparently so.
Okay then.
The beacon is next to a mug that reads World's Best Dad. Now, it could belong to Hank or Scott. It would actually be really sweet if it belonged to Hank because Hope resented him so much in the first movie, and this would show how far their relationship has come. And one of the books on the table is Dr. Eleanor's book of Common Ants of California, and there's a monitor with a readout of an ant in the background right here. And also, this book is called Journey to the Ants. Now, notice the t-shirt that Casie is wearing. To me, this looks like a climate change graphic t-shirt, similar to the science graphic tees that Peter Parker's always wearing. And this would make sense with Casie becoming a scientist like Hope and the rest of the Van Dynes. So Casie invents this quantum beacon, and Janet is immediately horrified.
Turn it off. Now!
So let's back up for a second and talk about Janet's experience in the quantum realm. Remember that she was forced to go subatomic while on a mission.
She turned off her regulator and went subatomic.
And then the last movie was all about the team recovering her from the quantum realm. We also found out that over the years she had been imbued with quantum energy, which allowed her to help Ghost with her phasing problem. Now, there is a crucial deleted scene from Quantumania where she drops a bigger tease for this movie.
Worlds upon worlds, entire civilizations, far more than we ever theorized.
And you can tell like how close this came to being included in the movie because a lot of the visual effects have been finished. So this conversation was clearly intended to be canon. Janet spent 30 years in the quantum realm building a new life for herself.
We have no leaders. We follow only the will of the forest.
So in this movie, she'll be running into some of those people from her past. And she'll be a guide for the family as well. Clearly, she knew that there was someone dangerous in the quantum realm because she is afraid.
Kang the Conqueror?
Exactly. So it looks like Kang pulls this family into the quantum realm because, as we'll see in a bit, he needs something from them. But we'll talk about Kang, who he is, and what he wants a little later in the video. Just be patient. So they get sucked into the quantum realm, which is a bit different in the comics where it was called the microverse. And it's a lot like what we see here, another universe inside of our own filled with civilizations and cities. Oh, and notice how Scott let go of this on purpose just so he could follow Casie inside. Now notice there's all these vortexes in the sky, like gateways to other timelines or realities.
Like the Devil's Anus in Thor Ragnarok.
Kind of, but not really.
Okay, so wait, so what do you mean by other timelines and realities? This is the quantum realm.
Okay. Look, I'll give you a brief explanation, but I don't want to spend too much time on this because we're trying to break down this trailer. Basically, the multiverse is made up of different realities or universes like we saw in Multiverse of Madness and in Loki. Now, the show Loki revealed that when someone travels through time or makes a weird decision, like stealing the Tesseract, that causes a branch in the timeline, and that branch is now a new reality or a new universe. So new realities are actually being created all the time. In Avengers Endgame, the Avengers use the quantum realm to travel between realities and to revisit different times and places. So the quantum realm actually exists in between the multiverse.
Because, like me, it is so small.
Exactly. So Scott is wearing his super suit. He probably kept it shrunk down in his pocket, or like every other suit in the MCU, it might just appear over him with the click of a button. So then he and Casie encounter all these weird looking natives. There's a robot with a battery on its head, these people in masks, there's warriors, wizards. I think that these are the people who live outside the city. They're the road agents, the vagabonds, the people who don't belong.
It all looks like Shark Boy and Lava Girl to me.
You're right. Robert Rodriguez was a pioneer. High five. Seeing all these people explains how Janet got her gear when she was living in the quantum realm. My guess is that she initially traveled to the city that we see later, but then she left and settled among these outsiders. Now, a little later in the trailer, we see this person kneeling in front of a table or a pool as they watch 4 beams of light in the sky. I think these beams are Janet, Hank, Hope, Scott, and Casie entering the quantum realm. Scott and Casie are together, so their beam is a little brighter than the rest. And this beam, Hope, is her being separated from her parents. So the family initially has to find each other. So in this shot, we see Hank, Janet, and Hope in some kind of weird forest, maybe looking for Scott and Casie. Like, I think this shot is Hope shortly after she lands in this forest. Notice she's in her suit, which she would have kept in her pocket, but she looks very worried. So this whole thing, the weird scenery, the aliens, and pop soundtrack also reminds us a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy. Janet then clarifies what the quantum realm is.
It's a secret universe beneath ours.
Then back to that shot I mentioned earlier, and notice these weird snail-like horse creatures looking up at the sky, like all those illustrations of dinosaurs dinosaurs watching the meteor hit Earth. Then we see the Pyms reunited and find a giant fleshy stingray over the quantum realm. Again, Janet knows how to navigate this place, so she probably learned how to ride one of these things like she's one of the Na'vi. These orbs in the background are also very reminiscent of the dark dimension, so this seems like a really good time to mention that we actually saw the quantum realm here in the first Doctor Strange when the Ancient One was showing Stephen different realities. So the quantum realm is actually one more reality in a vast multiverse that includes different timelines and a freaky weird hand dimension. Next we see the family getting disguises, a lot like the hats and sunglasses they wore in the last movie.
It's not a disguise, Hank. We look like ourselves at a baseball game.
Hope is even wearing a hat that looks like a ball cap. This is where Janet says,
There's something I never told you.
as we get our first look at Kang the Conqueror, placing a power source inside of some kind of battery. Now, Kang the Conqueror is one of the greatest all-time Avengers villains in the comics. He's a time traveler from the distant future who got so bored with his peaceful era that he decided to travel into ancient Egypt and conquer the past. He time traveled so much that he created like an endless amount of variants of himself, which formed a council of Kangs. Now, we of course met a variant of Kang called He Who Remains in the show Loki. He told us that all of his variants discovered the multiverse and eventually they went to war against each other. So He Who Remains weaponized that cloud dog Goliath to end the war and create the sacred timeline. And the sole purpose of the sacred timeline was to prevent any version of reality where Kang could be created. But the control of He Who Remains went only so far, and after he was killed, the timeline split out of control. So we see that some variant of him has conquered the Time Variance Authority at the end of the show.
To be continued in Loki Season 2.
And here's what's interesting about Loki's last episode. While Sylvie and Loki are trying to find He Who Remains, Miss Minutes basically revealed to Ravonna Renslayer that she is actually working for the one person here who has true agency.
This isn't what I asked for.
I know, but he thinks this'll be more useful.
Who?
Happy reading.
So Ravonna goes to see him.
Where are you gonna go?
In search of free will.
Now in the comics, Ravonna is the lover of Kang the Conqueror, so this implies that Miss Minutes has actually been working for Kang all along.
What?
Well, I think this is possible because after the multiversal war, this version of Kang escaped into the quantum realm. Remember, the quantum realm exists outside of time and space, so the timeline corrections of He Who Remains cannot affect Kang while he's in the quantum realm. But as a consequence, he was unable to leave the quantum realm for decades, or else he would have faded away like Marty McFly. Instead, Kang has to wait, bide his time, and now he's hoping that Scott and his family can help get him out of the quantum realm. The city they arrive in looks a lot like this domed city that we saw a glimpse of in Ant-Man and the Wasp. This city could also be Chronopolis, which was created and ruled by Kang the Conqueror in the comics. We can see all the city's ships powered by these blue glowing orbs of light, just like the blue light that surrounded Kang. In the leaked trailer for Quantumania, we see relationships more fleshed out. The trio investigates their surroundings with Casie asking, "Where are we?" before Krylar, played by Bill Murray, appears. So when wandering the quantum realm, we can see multiple Janets walking around. Another cool tidbit from this leaked footage is that we can see the appearance of MODOK with Kang. It's rumored that Darren Cross, played by Corey Stoll, will return as MODOK after he was sent to the quantum realm at the end of Ant-Man. So throughout the trailer, Kang tells Scott that he's lost a lot of time. But time isn't a straight line. Kang can see all of time at once, all possibilities of the future. In the leaked footage, Ant-Man tells Kang, "I'm an Avenger," and Kang simply replies, "I'm a conqueror. Have I killed you before?" Implying that in the multiverse, Kang has actually fought more than one Ant-Man and won. So this city is very technologically advanced. When we see these massive armies gathering around, their blue glowing energy matches Kang, so it would make sense if this was his army, created to fight in the multiversal war or to invade the multiverse if he's ever able to escape. And then we get our first glimpse at Kang on this rising platform. So there's a few things to notice here. One, it's being powered by one of the batteries that we saw him place energy inside earlier. Two, notice that he's rising out of a cavern where there's like a cloth or a tent in the lower left hand side here and there's lanterns strung up. So one theory is that this is the moment when Kang arrived in the quantum realm. There were no cities or advanced technology, just primitives. And then he arrived in his time chair and changed everything.
Hey, that story sounds familiar. Wait a minute. Like Yellow Brick Road.
Yes, this whole movie looks like a massive retelling of The Wizard of Oz.
Where are we?
We must be over the rainbow.
Like Dorothy, they get sucked into a new land through a vortex. They meet strange people in this colorful world. The world is being ruled by another outsider, like the Wizard, who built up this large fantastical city like the Emerald City. And this is where Bill Murray's character could come into this. He is playing Krylar, a very obscure villain from the Incredible Hulk number 156. Basically, the Hulk goes into the microverse, aka Quantum Realm, and meets Krylar, who has a machine that creates a physical embodiment of whatever you fear the most.
Like a boggart.
Yes, now in the leaked footage, there there was an implication that Janet and Krylar used to be a thing, which was a shock to Hank. I think it's likely that he's a person of some importance that lives outside of Kang City. He might even be another visitor from the multiverse, which is why he looks human. Back to Kang's raising platform here, one thing you'll see recurring a lot in this trailer are loops and rings. Loops like the Sacred Timeline, or like the circular windows behind He Who Remains. In the past, we've theorized that the MCU is actually in a time loop, but also remember that a loop was the key for Tony to invent time travel. And the city itself also seems powered by rings. Maybe Kang built this city.
Kang built this city.
Not right now. Maybe Kang built this city as a giant quantum gateway so he would have the means to transport his entire army into the greater multiverse, you know, for conquering. Notice the glyphs on this door here. These look similar to what we've seen in the Eternals. Now this could be a link to the Celestials or a primordial energy and technology used by Kang within the Dome City. This could also be a nod to the glyphs we see on Mount Wundagore and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, showing us another possible source of ancient magic foretold through different realities that Kang could have used. Now wherever the source is, we can see that this is a language or symbol used in the Dome City and was actually used as one of the original concept logos for Quantumania. Next we see Scott on what looks like the bridge of a ship looking worried. I'm wondering if this wreckage behind him is the wreckage from the Multiversal War. It looks similar to what we saw in the Miss Minutes video in Loki. Later we see a ship fly into wreckage very similar to this that looks like it was constructed of rings. Janet and Hope walk into a bar to meet some aliens, and I'm guessing to get some information. This is probably when they're looking for Scott and Casie. Then there's this awesome shot straight out of Gulliver's Travels. Now, if you haven't read it, or if you haven't seen the Ted Danson TV movie from the 90s, that book is about a man who lands in unknown lands and encounters strange people. Some of the people are small and some are like super large, but size in the book is used as a metaphor to show how people across the world in English colonies were often perceived as powerless, but they actually were not. So there's the literal comparison here of Scott being large around little people, kind of like Gulliver among the Lilliputians in that story. But there's also Kang venturing into the quantum realm, thinking these people would be easy to conquer. But in these regions outside the city, there might be some kind of resistance. Kang tries to make a deal with them, saying,
I can get you home.
There's no place like home.
Now maybe the energy or device they find that gets them home will also help Kang to leave the quantum realm. There's also rumors that Kang is sending them on a kind of heist, which would also bring the trilogy full circle.
My days of breaking into places and stealing shit are done. What do you want me to do? I want you to break into a place and steal some shit.
Maybe this energy or device they find for him will help him escape the quantum realm and will help them get home. This is also similar to the Wizard of Oz, who sent Dorothy and her friends to get the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West, except in this case, the witch might be MODOK. There's a few very cool shots here as Janet enters a strange chamber all by herself. Maybe this is the chamber she accessed with the stone door that she just opened. And we see these weird spider demogorgons, and then we see Scott and Hope and then the Pyms on the bridge of a ship, with reality kind of refracting behind them. Now these refractions might be caused by the only character who's not in this shot, Casie Lang. This trip is obviously going to give Casie some kind of superpowers, and she could even be the key to Kang's escape. Now, these reality refractions get flat out weird in the next shot, as Scott is running with several variants of himself, including a Giant Man variant. I wonder if he is not the only version of Scott Lang on a quest like this, like at this moment. Maybe his multiversal selves all enter this space at the same time and are trying to accomplish the same goal, which is get the witch's broomstick for Kang. Then Giant Man turns into string cheese like so much Mr. Fantastic. Now at some point, Casie gets her own suit, probably to contain her new abilities. Her new suit is purple, which is the costume she wore as Stinger in the comics, as opposed to her costume as Stature, where she wore red and black.
And give you more time.
Kang also seems to promise Hank and Janet more time, which makes sense. He is, after all, the master of time, but these two have also lost 30 years together while she was trapped in the quantum realm. And here, Scott and Casie are running through a more primitive village that looks like it's under attack, probably from Kang's forces. Hope, Casie, and Scott end the trailer on a walkway that looks a lot like it's inside the Dome City that we saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Theory confirmed.
My man, high five. Kang looks incredible, by the way, and pretty close to some of the fan art that's been released since Jonathan Majors was announced in this role. I love this final reveal of Kang. Very comic accurate costume, he's scarred from battle. So excited to see him be the new Thanos in the Kang Dynasty, and this movie is going to be a great start to Phase 5. So let me know your thoughts on the trailer down below, or you can @ me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Arey.